Hey folks, sorry for the technical difficulty and the wardrobe. It is sweeps month. So give me a minute while I try to get my co-host.
It-
Hey! Yes, I finally figured it out how to do this. Because I am a Luddite. So welcome back, folks. We are here with Unfinished Business Live 3 p.m. East Coast. A little late, but at least we're here. So let's go through the news because we've got a lot of it. And again, as always, feel free if you guys want to ask any questions, let us know. We'll try to answer them. We'll be on here for about an hour. First, let me try to. Okay. I don't know what we should talk about first. Should we? I think we should talk about. It's not really the elephant in the room, but we should talk about, unfortunately, that Val Kilmer recently passed away. Great character actor, leading man. Um, Tons of movies. Tombstone, Batman Forever for some of the younger folks. He was also in, for me, I remember him in Real Genius, Top Secret, Willow, Heat, of course, all these classics, Thunderheart, maybe not a classic, but memorable. The Doors, where he fully inhabited Jim Morrison, lead singer of The Doors. Um, Unfortunately, he succumbed at the age of 65. Um, Andre, tell us about some of your favorite memories of Mr. Val Kilmer.
Where do I begin? The earliest memory I have of Val was probably seeing Willow in the theater as a kid with my mom.
Yes.
You know, remember really liking it then, even as scary as it was. And I guess I didn't know Val Kilmer like that in the beginning because all his roles were so diverse between what he did at Willow, what he did as Jim Morrison in The Doors, and I can't anybody else ever played Jim Morrison the way that he did. And Tombstone alone as Doc Holliday, he should have gotten an Oscar for that. It's a crime that for such an iconic performance that he never got that kind of recognition for that at the time, even though now it's considered like one of these amazing performances ever. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that he did up until Batman, he was kind of like carving this little path where he was a heartthrob and he was a great actor, but I think he was trying to be more like a Sean Penn or a Kevin Bacon, kind of like what you saw in his documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And Batman Forever came along. And listen, at the time, I was jarred by the fact that they were switching actors because I was a Keaton guy, but I liked what he did, despite what the rest of the movie was under Joel Schumacher's direction. I thought he was actually trying to tap into something that I think Bale would later do with the Christopher Nolan movies. And after that, it was an up and down thing for his career, but I think that stuff like Kiss Bang Bang, he was excellent, Spartan, and then there's all sorts of controversies, of course, Island of Dr. Moreau and all stories of him being so difficult and things like that. But you know, nobody's perfect, but the man definitely was a giant of a talent that I don't think we appreciated enough. I think now when I watch the Top Gun Maverick, it just hits that much harder that it was the very last thing that he did, and he had the bravery to do that part as Iceman again. So he's definitely a guy I missed for a while, and I'm going to miss him more because he was that good.
Do you think that maybe, I mean, when, you know, Gene Hackman passed away, there was, an outpouring because, we all grew up with him to a certain extent, but he was always older, like our parents' generation. Do you think, like, Val Kilmer, maybe the more outpouring is because he was more, not, well, he's older than us, but of our generation of like leading men and character roles? Mm.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, the guy really had the path of somebody that just really came out the gate. Top Secret, I think, was his first movie, and he's the lead star, followed by a Real Genius. So, it didn't matter if the movies didn't do well or not. He made some impression on us growing up. So it was like once he started to really hit it to that A-list level, and we were all kind of into it because he was a good looking guy, he's cool, he's edgy, and just had that lasting impression on us that with Gene Hackman, it's different because there was all the mystery around his death that made it so weird and bizarre. Here, it was like you kind of knew it was eventually going to come because of the fact that we knew he was sick, and we knew like he was just never going to be able to speak again. So, like when I saw the news that morning when I woke up, I wasn't completely taken by surprise. I felt like, not that I said it was going to happen tomorrow, but I had a sense, I don't know how long he was going to go for, but yeah, he just the impression he left lasting. I'm still pretty much in my mind, the guy that was in the Doors and Tombstone.
Well, I think also the other thing was that I guess once when he was a leading man, it was like, oh, another Val Kilmer movie. Then he stopped working as much, due to the rumors of him being difficult, then him getting sick. And, now you kind of more savor even those little roles because I think one of the reasons why now, maybe later in his life, the comedies worked so well was because we were around for like when everybody was like complaining that he took himself way too seriously. He was this method actor. And then you look back at those movies and you can see he's making fun of himself. Even his guest role on Entourage, and MacGruber, before he got sick, where he's playing the villain. I think it was that he was versatile, but again, like you said, I think also maybe some of that attitude was that, again, in the documentary, when they refer to it, remember he was in that play with Sean Penn
Yeah.
and all these upcoming actors, and they kind of always treated him as an outsider because, I guess the role he played in the movie, in the play. So maybe he always kind of had that chip on his shoulder ever since then. And then you look at something like Top Gun, where it's like the roles are reversed because now he's the leader of the cool guys, and Tom Cruise is literally the maverick outsider, and he's like keeping him at bay. So I like to think of it that way. That maybe that's why he was a little more difficult because, like, I don't know, one of the channels on my cable or streaming is playing like all Val Kilmer movies right now. So I watched Ghost in the Darkness before, and while it's not the world's greatest film, that was that I could understand why he was attracted to that movie in that role, and he's actually really good in it. And if I'm correct, was that after Batman, his
Yeah.
first role after Batman?
Mm-hmm.
So, he's like top billing, even though he has to share the screen with old Michael Douglas. And I know it's ironic with me wearing this hat, but the hat he wore in that, I'm like, I want that hat. That safari kind of pimpish, Scarlet Pimpernel, kind of big bush hat. So, and if you go with that and his hat from Tombstone as Doc Holliday, I'm like, yo, this man was like using a lot of the dope hats. Even though, there is one movie I kind of like, or I guess I'm not going to say it's a guilty pleasure because it's not good. I kind of wanted to like The Saint,
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because I was like, this is cool. He's playing all these different roles until like the middle of the film where he's just himself. But, I wanted to like it because I felt like it fed into all his ideas, but it just was kind of slow and you didn't really care
Very.
about the story, So, well, I want to keep talking about Val Kilmer, but we have
Yeah.
so many other stories to talk about. Like, yeah, again, guys, if you want to have any questions, feel free to ask. And unfortunately, Wings Hauser,
Yep.
another great character actor, died a few weeks before him. He worked with Gary Sherman, who we interviewed. One of his most famous roles was in
Vice.
Vice Squad. Yes. I was like, oh, I mean, I think I always was like thought he was cool just because of his name, Wings Hauser. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and the dude's name is Wings, you know. But I remember him in what was that bad Ryan O'Neal, Norman Mailer?
Oh, Tough Guys Don't Dance.
Oh yes, I remember
Oh
him
man.
from that. And for some odd reason, I have no idea why. I knew he was Cole Hauser's father, but up until recently is the only time I was reminded. And like, oh yeah, they look almost exactly alike, except Wings is a little bigger. But truthfully, the last time I remember seeing Wings Hauser in a movie was Rubber,
No.
where he was like a Vietnam vet in a wheelchair. You know, but he was always a joy. I mean, he was even in Original Gangsters, which we talked
Yeah.
about recently. Not a big role, but he was in it. I'm like, I wish I had the lyrics for Neon Slime by Ramrod to sing him off. But great character actor. Do you have any particular memories of roles that he played?
I mean, most of the roles he played that I can think of were like a lot of authority figures, the occasional like general or cop, or, we were talking about with Gary Sherman. Like after he did Vice Squad, he really didn't want to do that kind of role ever again. And
I can see why.
yeah, because it was pretty damn extreme. And the funny thing is, when I was much younger, and I would have like these TV guides, and like whenever some of his movies came up, his name would come up. And maybe because I didn't read well at that time, I would see the word Hauser, and for some reason I kept thinking Rucker Hauer. So I
Oh,
thought,
I thought you were going to say Doogie Howser.
no.
It's like, hey, this isn't Neil Patrick Harris.
That's true. Oh, yeah. Yes, Vashon mentioning Soldier Sword. That's another thing, too. He likes to play racist a lot.
Likes to, or was that
No.
what he was offered?
I think he's been typecast as a racist.
Maybe it was the Southern thing with him that they were like, perfect. I'm like, oh man, I'm like, poor Wings Hauser. But I think the scary part is he was so good at it.
That's the thing, yeah. And then I found out later because we interviewed Steven D'Souza, and he was hinting at like an actor that was supposed to play the Vernon Wells part who dropped out after the first day. It was Wings Hauser.
Oh man. I wonder if he ever looked back and was like mad he dropped out, considering how that film went on in infamy.
Well, how much stock did Vernon Wells really get after Commando? He got Inner Space, which I like.
He was in a lot of, B movies. Do you think it was the wardrobe, the chainmail vest that he was like, I'm out? He was like, this is feeling ramrodish, And I think he could have been a good match against Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, yeah.
So, again, another actor we would love to talk about, but we have more news stories to go to. Again, guys, feel free to answer questions. If not, we're just going to keep going. So, the big news this week is, Vashon putting all these Vernon Wells.
Mm-hmm.
So, see, these are some big movies. Wings Hauser could have been in Weird Science. It's the match you've been waiting for. John Hughes, Wings Hauser. Somewhere, John Capellanos is sweating.
He should be on our show.
I would love to. He's probably working though. So he always seems to work. Even though one of my favorite roles of his, I don't know if you ever watched the Canadian series Forever Night about a vampire.
Yeah, I remember Forever Night.
When his character's name was, what was it, Spanky? I that is the thing I remember the most about that show. Him and that name Spanky. It was his actual name or nickname on that show. But our first news story is Brad Pitt and David Fincher are working together again on The Movie Critic, or Quentin Tarantino's Movie Critic script that is more focused around Cliff Booth and his adventures in Hollywood. Quentin is obviously not directing, but he gave them the script as obviously he doesn't want this to be his final film, and right now he's focused on writing and finishing his play. So this is an interesting turn of events. I mean, if you're going to give something to a director, you give it to somebody as masterful as David Fincher. But David Fincher is more the style director. I don't know if he's more the hangout dialogue heavy, kind of director. I'm not saying it's out of his wheelhouse, but it would be something different from him. And the only thing I'm worried about is that we're going to be stuck having to watch this on Netflix instead of the big screen. And, because even the films he makes for Netflix, it kind of goes against their usual algorithm where it's like, this is cinematic. Electric State, not so much. But we'll get into that in a future episode. But I'm looking forward to it. It's kind of one of the best geeky news that's happening. What are your feelings on this?
You know, I find it interesting. Only because of the fact that it looks like Tarantino is in that phase where he's really savoring to get that 10th movie right. So if he doesn't have the full investment in doing a follow-up to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, yeah, why not do the true romance thing and pass it off to somebody you trust or thinks they can handle the work well. So it has me curious, and I know Fincher can do a 70s movie. We saw that with Zodiac. I'm now wondering if he starts selling off other scripts he hasn't produced, like that Vega Brothers script or Kill Bill Volume 3. Is he going to start passing off to different directors?
Mm,
Sudden?
I hope not. Because it's just like it's such in your voice. I mean, it's like if there was a lost Hitchcock script, and then you like hand it off to like some other director. You know, um, yeah, Adam, I kind of hope it will get released like The Irishman. I mean, if you live in New York, you can probably go see it at the Paris since that's the theater Netflix owns. So there's hope there, but I don't know about other states. Or maybe it'll be like an Apple Plus TV release with that what was it, Alphas? Was that the George Clooney Brad Pitt
Oh,
movie?
Wolves. That's
Wolves.
even as a good as putting it on Netflix.
I mean, it's gonna obviously be on Netflix, but I'm kind of hoping, like, remember when the Russo brothers did that Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans action movie that cost like $200 million?
Yeah, and that's why their career is in the situation that it's in now, even though they got the Avengers movie, which we're going to talk about Doomsday, guys, so don't worry. Yeah, you send a blank check to those guys, and they're grounded. They're bound to just squander it.
I think it's because I don't know. It's sort of like, well, we could get into the Russo brothers as we start talking. I
Yeah,
think it's that whole thing. Like, once you got money, like if you win the lottery, you don't remember. Oh, when I was making grilled cheese sandwiches, now it's like, no, I've got to go to France and have a chef prepare it with Gruyere. And it's worth spending the 10,000 rather than just me going to the corner store, getting some American cheese, grilling it up, for less. So I'm just like, because I don't understand why does every film they make have to cost $300 million or 200 million or upwards. I'm not sure what they spent on that Tom Holland movie Cherry about the Vietnam vet who comes home and then becomes a junkie and starts robbing banks, but I'm betting it was 100 plus. And
maybe. I mean, even so, they just have a bad streak of picking projects, and yet the stuff they produce ends up being massive, like Everything Ever Rolled at Once and Extraction. But you can't direct a good movie outside of a Marvel film. Something ain't right.
well, that's why now they're a little bit worried about like the Avengers Doomsday because of all the bad reactions to their movies. Like, are they going to try and film it like a Netflix movie? Are they going to get used to that style? Or are they actually going to go out of their way and make something cinematic? I mean, either way, the movie's going to make money no matter how badly any Marvel film is before it, because everybody remembers how much they loved the Russo brothers directing previous Avengers films.
You know, let's get into this now because we know
Okay.
a week ago they put out that social media promo, which went for 5 hours of looking at chairs with names of all the actors that are going to be in it. And it was most of these guys that are still around in the current phase, and then they started releasing X-Men names, and then they released Channing Tatum's name, and at the very end they have Robert Downey Jr. And it was such a waste of time that they could have done in like a 2-minute video like they've done previously. You could have just done snapshots of everybody just like they did before, and that would have been fine. But instead we have to sit through 5 freaking hours just so jobs like the one I have at Collider would have to be like, oh, they just announced so and so, start writing pitches for this next story. And I'm sitting there, and I mean, I didn't write anything for them about it, but I'm just like, Jesus Christ, there is no major bombshell here. And by the way, for the people who think, oh, well, those missing actors they didn't name, oh, where's all the women? Where's Tom Holland? Everybody? Not everybody signed their contracts yet, and not everybody's going to be in this movie. They're saving some of these guys for Secret Wars, okay? And I some inside source, and I'm not going to say who it is, and I don't know anything specific, but it's my understanding. Yes, there's a lot more people than those names on the chairs, and yeah, I hear some of those names are going to make people's heads explode.
I feel like somewhere Brie Larson is next to her phone, like in the 1980s, waiting for a call.
Yeah, you have to wonder about that because somebody like her, I mean, I still think she's pretty much checked out as far as I'm concerned. But the fact that her name didn't get announced, that doesn't read well.
Well, I think Brie Larson needs to just, or her agent, I think she needs to start campaigning for not necessarily, oh, I need to come back to Captain Marvel, but campaigning to be in certain projects, just in general. Like, I'm glad she's sticking by her guns, but it might be time to be like, hey, Greta Gerwig, so heard about Chronicles of Narnia? Have you cast this role? Have you cast that role? You know, or like, hey, Jennifer Lawrence is doing a movie. Let me see if there's any good supporting roles I could play in it. I'm sure the casting director and the director will love, like, wait, I've got 2 Oscar winners in this? 2 hot blondes? You know. Well, Adam says, I watched the live stream the new rock stars did during it and had a fun time. I guess maybe if you're watching it, maybe that I didn't see it, so maybe they were like wisecracking throughout, and
Yeah.
about the situation they were in, and probably like, hey, while we're sitting here and waiting, let's talk about these Avengers and these Marvel movies. You know, I do you think Jonathan Majors is still at home with his Coretta Scott King? Or, like, hey, I'm free for a cameo.
I mean, he's
It's
begging for it and he's waiting for some good news. I'm not sure if that's happening. I mean, that magazine Dreams thing, I mean, when the trailer first dropped, you had Campy and all these guys saying, oh, he's going to come back to Marvel. This is good news and blah, blah, blah. And then the movie bombs the same weekend as Snow White.
Oh, come on.
And
It wasn't exactly really heavily released
right.
either.
So it's got these great reviews, and I'll probably see it once it's on
Same here.
streaming. I'm not going to lie. I'm just like looking at all this, and then you still have like Rolling Stone and other outlets talking about how he's purposely trying to go on this PR tour to clean up his act, but then can't help but have, different outlets talking about, oh yes, Jonathan Majors, abuser, accuser, convicted felon.
He needs to call up, what was his name? The guy who directed Birth of a Nation, the newer version. Yeah, like maybe they should get together and make a film together called The Canceled Crew. And
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I've seen the Nate Parker movie where he takes the police station hostage. It wasn't bad, but it was another thing where he directed it, but no major studio wanted to release it, so they just dropped it during the pandemic, and it got pretty good ratings.
well, do you think he's following in the footsteps of kind of like his mentor, Mel Gibson, where it's like he's canceled, but he's still hoping for that comeback project to direct and
Oh,
write?
yeah. Angel Studios is going to call him up because he'll change his political stance.
You never know. I'd be like, he could be like, don't be shocked if you see him in that sequel to Passion of the Christ.
Listen, there's a Bible Man movie waiting, They
Well,
can
he's got
swap.
to get past Willie Ames now.
What about Willie?
Okay. Bashan, feelings on Michael Mann, uh, Wanted. I take it maybe about Heat 2. Michael Mann has turned in his script and is waiting. Yeah, wanted to do a screen version of Heat 2. I know he turned in his script, but I think it all depends on WB, that's another news story we got to get into. Since they now all of a sudden want to get away from filmmaker focused project because Mickey 17 not doing the business they expected, won a battle after another, the PTA Anderson movie, which we'll talk about in this story. So if that movie doesn't really make any money, I think they're never going to give final cut and things like that in concessions to filmmakers. But this is like Michael Mann's dream project. I'm afraid like for him to get Heat 2, he's gonna have to direct another studio film like Their Way to show he can still bring in box office.
That's the hard part now because when's the last big movie Michael Mann did that was a big hit? I think it was what Miami, not Miami Vice. No, Miami
It had a good opening
Lost.
weekend.
Public Enemies did okay, but not great. And obviously, this Black Hat nearly destroyed Universal. Nobody saw Ferrari. So yeah, I mean, I could see the studio go and say, "Well, we'll do Hate 2, but you're not getting final cut. Like, we want something more like the original." And I'm sorry, but Adam Driver and Timothy Chalamet, that doesn't really get me excited. And possibly Austin Butler and the Val Kilmer part. Yeah, no. And like Rashawn said, that the book also cuts back and forth between the past and the current present, which means you need 85-year-old Al Pacino to come back as Vincent Hanna. I don't want to pay to see that. I think Heat is perfect as it is. It
I
still
agree.
holds up. And it's still like, I think, one of the best sound designs of any movie I've seen, especially with the bank robbery sequence. Yeah, Mike, don't touch it. If anything, maybe redo Crime Story as a movie, or not Thief. Thief is perfect as is, but maybe yeah, touch on Crime Story or Drug Wars, the Carmina story, something you did back then that wasn't that great.
Or right, yes, she does. I don't know who she would be in Heat 2. I'm like, let's bring back 70-year-old Diane Venora.
She could still do
Or, I mean, we could see the early days of their marriage. I don't know. Anyway, but my thing is, I still stand by my thing. I wish Michael Mann had maybe directed House of Gucci, rather than Ridley Scott. And Ridley Scott made Ferrari, because then maybe both of them you could be a little more excited about their next films after those films. But I think Michael Mann does need to maybe he just needs to write an original project or find a project that he can lend his skills to. Um, I see that Bashan says, funny thing is Crime Story is Heat.
technically, yeah.
Pretty much it is that LA Takedown TV movie that was written and filmed,
Maybe he could
kind of a bigger budget
also
remake.
happen after season 2 with that big cliffhanger with the plane crashing in the water. I'd like to see him write that as a novel.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad. I
He's
mean,
got time. He's an age.
well, I don't know. Maybe he's like all these other elder directors, like Francis Ford Coppola, Ridley Scott, all wanting to make all these projects. Like we have to do it now because I might not be alive soon. So I'm willing to risk all my. Well, Francis Ford Coppola had more money than all of them, and there is Megalopolis. I let people make their own decisions there. I didn't hate it, but it is one of a kind. I'm not going to say I loved it, but hey, the man stood where he wanted to. But while we're talking about this Warner Brothers, now all of a sudden they want to do IP based movies. This is after they've buried all these Looney Tunes. It's not available on WB streaming anymore. They practically almost buried what was it? The Day the Earth Blew Up. They sold off Coyote versus Acme, and
Thank
now
God.
he's on the we want to make a a Looney Tunes movie. and focus on IP. You mean after you paid for all these and then buried them like Batgirl? And
Yeah, the dude is dumb. That's all I got to say about that. But I'm just like, I'm hearing of every single IP that they're digging through that they now want to touch on. So they want to do another Gremlins. Now, apparently, they say, hey, they have a script for a Goonies sequel, which I think the ship has freaking sailed on that. I don't know why they think they could do that now. And of course, 8 million Batman movies, 8 million Superman movies. And right now, I mean, we're going to talk about Superman in a bit. They're saying if that doesn't do well, it's going to crash the studio. They may have to start selling things off.
Ruben wrote it's a cash grab. I'm like,
Yeah,
obviously, because they got to make up all the money that all these filmmaker-driven movies have bombed. Flintstones,
if
that's the
you
scary part.
want to do an IP that hasn't been touched on, why not Johnny Quest? You've had that for months. That could be something amazing.
That seems like an Amblin or like one you'd release on WB streaming, And
Did they want to do with Zac Efron and The Rock at one point?
how old was Zac Efron at the time?
It was post High School Musical, and The Rock hadn't done Fast Five yet.
Did they not see him in Journey? What was that Journey to the Center of the Earth
Yeah.
Part 2? It's like, oh, so we're just gonna repeat this. The Jacksons would be a cool project, but I just feel like if we get that, it's gonna be a computer animated film rather than live action. You
By the
know,
way, Ruben, there was supposed to be a Jetsons movie in the 80s, and it almost starred Chevy Chase and Shelley Long. I'm not kidding.
I can see that in the '80s, like written by John Hughes. you know,
What?
that would be
The Mecca starred at one point, then they wanted Robert Rodriguez to do it.
what it's like. We can't get Zemeckis. Call Robert Rodriguez always. It's like Red Sonja, Robert Rodriguez. Mask of Zorro, Robert Rodriguez. His ethnicity helps for that film. It's like, come on, WB. And now one battle after another. The new Leonardo DiCaprio movie. I'm like, even that. It's like, well, you have so many warring sides with that. Boots Riley says it makes no sense that Variety's reporting that they're battling over Final Cut when he's saying Paul Thomas Anderson he saw too hasn't finished the movie yet. But yet there's a trailer and a release date. And so I'm just like, I will admit, if it reeks of Inherent Vice again, but a little more dealing with the race, and yeah, I want to see it. It's Paul Thomas Anderson. I'm going to go
Yeah,
see it in theaters.
me
Anyway, but
too.
I think that is the barometer for the Warner Brothers right now is how successful that film is. Oh, and also, I want to take the time before I forget because we have so much news stories. I want to I want to send a birthday or a special birthday message to a friend of mine who is not going to be named, but they know who they are, and I just want to say happy birthday, even though they don't like birthdays or their own birthday. They are very special to me, and just want to send that message out. So happy birthday to her.
Happy
And
birthday.
thank you for agreeing. And while we're on, I guess, Warner Brothers, let's talk about Superman Returns or
Or
Superman.
just Superman.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm so used to sequel
Was
titles.
it
So now we have.
Arrow at one point? Like they keep changing the damn name.
I still like Superman Flyby. I don't know. But now the test screenings are still coming in mixed to bad. I don't know. I mean, you spent 200 million on it, and now you're like, this might not work. I understand why they thought it would work. He worked. James Gunn did wonders with Guardians of the Galaxy, but it seems like in the test screenings, maybe because it would go into too many details, but nobody's saying why nobody likes the film. They're just saying, mixed to medium reviews, and I mean, from the footage we're seeing, it looks fine. But I'm just like, I mean, also maybe it's just too little too late. Like, again, it's like with Batman, every few years a new one, and now it feels like Superman. And we're getting Superman again in a different vision, and it's like, I understand this isn't, I don't know, it doesn't seem to be an origin story, but still, it's like, come on, let's do something else. I know this is their big tentpole, and if it bombs, though, what does it say for the future of DC? I mean, I know Supergirl's already going into production, and don't they have another superhero film they're making?
Well, they're still trying to get that Batman the Brave and the Bold made, and that would conflict with Batman 2 with Pattinson, which they say, oh, it's happening. Then you hear that it might not be happening. So there's a whole conflict there. I mean, we've talked a lot about James Gunn, how he contradicts himself on social media half the time. And listen, I'm going to go see Superman when it comes out. It looks colorful. It looks fun. I hear it's funny. It's James Gunn. But I just think DC is damaged goods. I mean, and this is no knock on Superman because I grew up with Superman, but I'm just like, this audience right now is not gravitating to Superman the way they used to. He's very much of a different time and a different era, much like Snow White. And it's just the simple fact that, we've been so bombarded with bad products outside of these Batman movies, and even now the last Joker movie that did so terrible, that I'm like, of course people are not going to be that hyped up because of the simple fact that every time you try to reboot, something goes wrong. And we've seen this now. Like, you went the Donner route with Superman Returns, and that got rejected. Then you went the darker, more action-driven direction with Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, and that didn't clear what it needed to do, but they still went ahead and tried to build a universe out of it. So now, what's James Gunn doing? He's going to go and basically Marvelize Superman. Then it
Pretty
just
much.
looked at as, oh, you're just basically doing Marvel's version of Superman, and there's nothing more than you could do, and people are getting tired of Marvel anyway, so, I don't see the hype.
I agree, and it is true what Ruben commented. So is Marvel. Yes, I think the whole thing with superhero films are you've gotten too much of a good thing, and people are kind of tired of it. They want something original. I mean, it's easy to lead an audience and tell them they want something, but you at least got to back it up with something they haven't seen before, something more exciting. Because, quite frankly, they can still go read the comic books and be more impressed with what they can dream up or just through the pictures and storylines of those rather than what you're offering them. It's sort of like the comic books are advanced, you're giving them basic beginners again. And yes, you can, oh, you'll believe a man can fly. But it's like, yeah, but we're so way past that. You got to do more. You got to give us a story that we care about, and not something we've seen 20,000 times
And
before.
it gets harder to get hyped up for it when so much is getting leaked out, like the news of who's playing Jor-El, which I'm not going to say,
Yeah,
but
I've heard
yeah.
too. No spoilers on this show. And though it might get more viewers. But
That's
thank
fine.
you for the people who have tuned in.
You,
And again, if
Google, you'll
anybody has
find.
any questions, so I have to remind the audience. But we can keep going. But as Ruben, he led us into our next subject. Uh, IP. So I was to keep the IP at Disney. Yes, because from the beginning, even when they were filming, everybody's like, "This is a bad idea." But it seems weird that Disney was like, "Let's just keep putting more money. That'll make it better." And and again, we've talked about this before: the politics involved with that film. Gal Gadot, Rachel Ziegler. Now they're trying to put. Now the studio is trying to put it all on Rachel Ziegler's shoulders. Wyatt Bomb. She didn't invest 350 million into this project. She didn't decide. Let's make all the dwarves CGI. I understand politically correct. You don't want to keep giving miniature or diminutive actors those stereotypical roles. But on the other hand, I understand where Peter Dinklage is coming from. But yeah, you're getting those good roles. What about the rest of them? It kind of reminds me of that movie, A Different Man, where you have all these guys who are disfigured who want to be actors. What are the roles are they going to really be offered? I mean, it's sort of kind of like, minority actors back in the day when they did get roles. They only had they only had these minstrel type roles to play because that's all that they were going to be given, if given anything at all. So even though, yes, it's demeaning, but think about all the other actors other than you, Mr. Dinklage. What are they? They're going to be used as. It seems like half the time they're just used as sight gags in comedies. Other than that, because when was the last time you've seen like a big dramatic film where somebody with a disability or somebody who is what to me sounds insulting, little person, playing a big dramatic role? And
I mean, I put to you like this: if you put all the politics of Rachel Ziegler trying to be so far to the left on what they tried to do to change and update the story, this movie probably wasn't going to do great to begin with, because Snow White is a 70-something-year-old movie that, yes, I have an affinity for it because it was one of the first movies I saw as a kid when they re-released it in '87. But, this audience now is not going to gravitate to it the way like we did when we were getting all these Disney videotapes as children and eating our ice pops and all that other stuff, watching The Magical World of Disney on the weekends, So it just, like, Lion King, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast are more contemporary, that those are treated as more of events that people are going to run out to see. That said, if they want to keep doing these live action Disney movies, fuck it, do Oliver and Company as a live action movie. You still got Billy Joel, you still got Cheech Marin.
No. Let it be sacred. Oliver and Company is sacred. I don't need to see live action dogs. It'll be like Look Who's Talking 3.
More bound, but it would be more hip and urban. Also, that was a movie I saw at the place that is now Nighthawk when I was a kid. So I have my memories.
I saw Oliver and Company in theaters too. Leave Billy Joel and his marvelous song to the cartoon world. The Oliver and Company does not need to be live action.
You get Pete Davidson
or a Broadway show. No, just
but
leave it alone.
Probably is Sykes.
It's like first of all, we've already seen Snow White remade a bunch of times, also live action. They weren't great. That Julia Roberts version with Lily Collins, directed by Tarsem. I just don't think that needs to stop making live action of your cartoons. And I mean, I say it, be original. I'm like, this is what Warner Brothers is following, basically Disney. Let's get all this IP and then do it to death.
That's not, Popeye is a horror movie just because it's in public domain. Nobody wants to see Popeye killing people.
I told you the reason that is such a big thing. Again, it's public domain. The independent director probably wrote a horror script that is a slasher. He needs instant, celebrity or instant recognition. So why not do it with Popeye? Because even if people will watch it just because it's Popeye, just to see how bad it is, but it gets eyes on it, and that seems to be viewership is all that matters right now.
You do,
and basically
The Rock going to pay homage to Robin Williams again.
Why I'm like, look, everything is going to be, anything you could think of is going to be made into a movie. Remember, what was it? That Hanna-Barbera, those characters, it was made for sci-fi. I can't remember.
The banana something. Yeah.
Yeah, like they made that into a horror film. So I'm just like, why not? It's like nothing is sacred, Somebody's going to be like, oh, those Care Bears are coming up on public domain. They're going to be real bears. And they're going to slaughter families.
Space Ghost, he's like basically haunting and killing people on a ship.
Why not? You just gave some independent filmmaker the backbone to their story.
Or take The Love Boat, make it into like a Michael Bay action thriller on a boat.
I'm shocked they didn't go to Fantasy Island route and make that into a murder mystery on a boat. And everybody thinks it's like a fake murder mystery, but then dun dun dun. No, they actually did that with that.
Already?
Adam Sandler. Huh?
Didn't Adam Sandler already do that?
I was gonna say they're with my Love Boat. There's always
TV.
Five Nights at Freddy has 2 movies. I don't know how it got past the first one.
Yeah, right.
I guess because kids liked it, or
He's a
teenagers
good.
liked it. But it's pretty. It was pretty much the Banana Splits. It's only, I guess, with Matthew Lillard.
He gets a check.
I know, but I'm like, at least the Banana Splits didn't have any stars. Five Nights at Freddy's, like, yeah, we got Matthew Lillard, we got Josh Hutcherson,
And they got
yeah.
Stuart Matherson. I thought she had integrity.
She got bills to pay. Okay, I don't fault anybody for their decision unless they're like throwing caviar and cash at the screen.
Mhm.
These days, you gotta pay bills. So that's why, hey, as Rachel Ziegler said, yeah, if you want me to dress up as Snow White, show me the money. So I'm like, hey, I can't fault her.
Yeah, one word: tariffs.
Yeah, and that. Well, speaking of that, well, it has nothing to do with that. But we're moving on to the next subject. Guys, questions, please. Studios or theaters are now talking about they're going to give a longer, I guess, running time for movies to play in theaters. Where now it seems like it's 15 days. Now it's going soon. It's going to be 45 days. So at least you can miss the movie before it's already on pay-per-view. And I'm all for it because it gives you at least a little more time to catch it on the screen and maybe discover it. The problem is this year we've had kind of movies that feel more like content rather than studio and theatrical releases. So it's like you see the trailers, you're like, yeah, I kind of want to see that, but I don't want to pay for it, or at least not pay $20 for it. And I'm a big proponent of seeing movies in theaters, but none of them have had that kind of that grab you where you're like, I have to see this in theaters. This month, thankfully, you have Sinners with Michael B. Jordan. That makes me want to go to the theater. You have Warfare, which could use a little more promotion. I want to go see that in theaters, and just for the sound design, because I know it's going to be hot. But, so far this year, we haven't had these must-see films. And I mean, luckily this summer, we have Megan 2, which just released a trailer. Terminator 2, Megan 2. Yeah. And it seems like that's going the Maxine route because we're getting Megan 2, but we're already getting the spinoff Soulmate with it about a dating. We'll call it a dating. We know it's a sex doll that becomes obsessed with the owner and pulls a Megan. So it's like, at least they setting up their universe. Like, I like how there was news that the next Conjuring movie will be the end of phase 1 of the Conjuring universe. There's more?
There's one? What the hell?
I'm like, unless we are getting a sequel to that batshit bad movie with the lady with the thing on the back of her head. Sorry, spoiler. Unless we're getting a sequel to that, I don't need any more movies in that universe. What, are we going to have more Annabelles? More The Nuns? Is the Lady in Black part of that universe?
I don't even know. I get them all mixed up.
So I'm just like, that's always been the case. Studios have high budget and the money for some independent movies to come out. Yes, but the problem is, I guess now they're giving more money to independent films because, oh, you mean your $100 or $200 million gambles aren't paying off? Who'd have thought? So maybe you should fund that movie that could be kind of an independent hit or at least get you some clout at Oscars.
When movie theaters had more variety, and if it wasn't something that was a big tentpole that maybe you didn't have interest in seeing, you had something to counter program against it. And I'm not saying it always had to be an action movie, but it could just be like something of a middle of the road type of comedy or like a straight drama. And we don't have a lot of that anymore. You get it every now and then, but a lot of it just ends up being, as you said, the type of stuff that, I could just wait for this on streaming. I don't need to pay money to see this in the theater.
Well, that's because you get more. We call them dramas; they're more melodramas, or they're foreign films that you and I might want to go see, but the average audience isn't going to go see. It's, as you would call it, the artsy fartsy crowd who goes to see that. You're not going to get some 17-year-old kid who's like, hey, Jennifer Lawrence is in this. This might be good. you know?
Ruben brings up a point about Shudder on Train needs content. This reminds me of something else. Where is all this fucking money going that they can pump out stuff for Tubi, for Lifetime, and for Shudder, and all these other channels, and it's so difficult to just get money to get a film produced now? Stars or no stars?
Well, I think because at least with those streaming channels, you can do, well, especially Tubi, you can go with no star in your film. As long as you have a script, a budget, and you can get everything done. Basically, if you can be like Uwe Boll, you're good. You can get it all done on time, or even early. They're down for it. Shudder, I agree, because half the time I go on there and it's like, oh, their new arrivals are old horror films that I've seen that you took off months ago and are just putting it back. And I would like more originals, but it seems like most of their output also is a lot of European stuff or foreign stuff rather than American. But again, because I think Shudder also kind of is like, well, we don't want to put on Popeye the Sailor Man. So, we're just at least looking for quality. Because personally, as a subscriber to Shudder, a lot of times you'll be watching a horror film on there and be like, yo, this is a drama. This isn't really horror. It might have some thrills in it, but this isn't really horror. I mean, maybe there's some blood in it. So maybe that is, I agree. I want Shudder to have more. And Tubi is the bargain bin of our tower day. Yes, and just like in the bargain bin, you find some gems. I have found a lot of Giallo Italian movies watching Tubi. I found more Giallo movies there than I did on Shudder. So let's see, our next subject, the Michael Jackson movie. This has just been brutal for the production of this movie. All these rumors about infighting, Antoine Fuqua directing from a van. Now they have a 4-hour cut, so now they might release it in 2 parts. I feel like they're really sitting, watching, like, how's Wicked doing? Did it make its money back? Well, Wicked has a built-in audience. I mean, Michael probably has a built-in audience too, but not a Wicked built-in audience. The CGI nose controversy. I mean, at least it'll be an all-star film. I feel like that is going to be the big minority film when it is finally released. But I also think you'll get some more Caucasians to go see, because it's Michael Jackson. It's an icon. And I find it troubling that Michael Jackson lived to a certain age. He's getting a 2-parter. But yet, when it came to legends like James Brown, Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, they're like, 2 hours is good. They didn't even get 2 hours plus. Even Whitney didn't get 2 hours plus.
Well, yeah, the Whitney one just felt like they kind of threw that one out there. Even though there's some good moments, it just didn't really feel... It didn't feel full. I mean, we talked about that when we reviewed it. It's just like, it felt like it was just the Cliff Notes version of her life and career. Michael Jackson has just so much to compact that it's just... I agree that maybe 2 movies would be enough to cover all the ground, depending on where they decide to stop and where they continue. And the rumors that it's supposed to end with the Neverland raid by the police and all this other stuff.
It sounds like you said the Neverland rape. I was going to say, whoa!
Fight it for a minute.
Okay, because I was about to say, whoa!
No.
Whoa! It's called Reasonable Doubt, buddy.
Watch Where One, the documentary, that dispels all that bullshit that's out there.
Well, that HBO documentary that Oprah helped produce helped dispel, even though it was supposed to add more weight to the case. To me, that
Paul fucker released a second documentary, but he can't release it in the United States.
Why?
And for there's nothing in there that really adds anything other than, oh, watching these 2 fuckers try to get their money in court and failing.
I can see that. And no, I will not leave Wicked out of the conversation, because I sat there and watched Wicked, and I would comment on it, but anybody who received my text while I drank and watched that knows my opinions on that movie, and it ain't good. So yes, they analyze how to dupe suckers and Broadway kids who were disappointed by Mean Girls the musical, me included. Uh, you know, and I did not see Wicked in theaters. I waited, it didn't pay, and I was still pissed. And I was 40 minutes into the movie. I'm like, it's only that part way done. I've got another 2 hours to go with this. It's like, hey, I like campy. That's beyond campy, you know. And you know what? I know I'm gonna get hated on for this. The songs weren't that great. Yes, I said it. And the only part of the movie I really enjoyed was when the original stars from Broadway had their song and cameo in the film. You know, I'm sorry. That is my thing of Wicked. You
I
know.
just don't like when Cynthia Erivo smugs for cameras.
So you didn't like Tubman.
I haven't even seen. Maybe that's what turned me off from seeing it. Is that she has to smug in every poster and photo that she's in, and that's why she got all pissy when they tried to do that homage poster of the original play. And like, you don't cover my face.
Well, I mean, come on, Harriet Tubman. She had to have a song in the movie.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, it was for because Dear Evan Hansen sucked. Who couldn't tell that? You have a guy who's in his 40s looking like a narc playing the lead role. Sure, it works on Broadway unless you got really good seats.
And the guy sounded like he was auto-tuned.
I wouldn't put it past me. He's getting older. He might got polyps. But yeah, I mean, hey, a lot of musicals sucked on the big screen. That doesn't mean we got to get Wicked.
Not Little Shop of Horrors. That was one of the best.
I even saw that on Broadway after the movie, so that one always
So did I.
works, you know. But I just feel like, look, you guys have your Wicked. It just wasn't for me. And maybe someday, no, it won't be the same. I was going to say, maybe someday I'll do a live commentary of it with a bottle of wine, and then my true feelings will come out, and then I'll get canceled. But no. So, next story. All four Beatles movies, directed by Sam Mendes, will be coming out in April of 2008. Yes, we did see Little Shop of Horrors together, Ruben. But I still think this is a bad idea. Yeah, a Beatles biofilm. I understand it's all meant to be seen one after the other because we're getting the full Beatles story from each point of view.
Why?
Exactly. I can read again. I can read a biography. I can read a book. I can watch a documentary. I don't need to be like, I need to see actors reenacting all of this so it hits home. I get a more of a theme here.
Yeah. Are we going to do like John before, up until he gets killed by Mark David Chapman? Are we going to do Paul until Linda dies of cancer? Like, I don't know if I want to see their entire life story. Or we're going to go back to their childhoods. Is that how long each film's going to be?
And well, they decide later to do it as each one in two parts. So that now we have 8 movies. We have our own cinematic universe of the Beatles story.
Do I have to see the part of Paul McCartney getting screwed over with his royalties from Michael Jackson?
Yes. We can make that into like the Phantom Menace, where we discuss politics and business deals for 2 hours. Be like, well, if you look at Amendment B on this contract, it says, I'll be like, oh man, I'm getting goosebumps. I'm feeling Oscars. It's going to be like, this is better than the trial of the Chicago 7.
Oh, no.
Did Aaron Sorkin write this? This is exciting. It makes me want to get into entertainment law. You know? Yeah, this is like not the question show. So we're just going to keep discussing. If anybody is still out there, we're still taking questions. We'll probably be on for at least another 10 minutes. If not, we're just going to shotgun these stories or go into our own theatrics, as apparently the debate with Ruben over movie musicals. Good conversation, though. Millie Shapiro from Hereditary will be starring in Mike Flanagan's Carrie remake. And my reaction is like yours with the last story. Why? Something wrong with the original?
Yeah,
Like it.
what are we doing? I mean, how many remakes of Carrie have there been? Like 10? It's like, come on, guy. Is this one going to end with the mother having a heart attack instead of getting stabbed up? There's no point.
Who knows? Maybe. I'm like, what is the difference in this? Just because Mike Flanagan does well with Stephen King does not mean let's just let him remake everything or make every story Stephen King.
I'm like,
Comes up.
Mike, so many other Stephen King adaptations you could redo that have not been good. You could redo Christine. You could redo Cat's Eye. You could redo, I don't know, what if his lighter movie books?
He could redo Maximum Overdrive.
Yeah, why not? Oh, Mike Flanagan with Bruce Greenwood playing, I don't even know, but you could do Max. Who reminds you of Emilio Estevez these days?
Emilio Estevez. I think after Young Guns 3, he's available. You know, I don't know who owns Stephen King's book IP. Doesn't he still own it?
Under Castle Rock or under Warner Brothers.
I'm just like, just Carrie is one of the cinematic classics. Just leave it alone.
Things. That's another one you could redo. That was a terrible movie.
Well, they're already doing Cujo, so I can't suggest that one. So
I wouldn't mind Cujo,
like,
but I mean, nowadays nobody wants to see dogs die.
That's why Man's Best Friend wasn't a bigger movie.
That one scene with the guy's nuts.
Hey, Lance Henriksen could still, come in a wheelchair like, I'm still trying to get that dog. Oh, we forgot to talk. This would have been better earlier when we had more viewers. Blade has been scrapped. Totally. We saw it coming. You predicted it. And now finally they shotgunned it to death.
Yeah, they said that before they canceled it, they were looking at Cary Fukunaga to direct, but they said he was difficult. Then they were talking about Chad Stahelski from John Wick was going to do it. So basically now the word is they're basically not going to, they may do the movie at some point in the future, but they might just reintroduce Blade in Midnight Suns if that gets made or in one of these Avenger movies. But I'm just like, even if you do all that, are you really going to stick with Marshall Ali pushing 60 years old? I know Wesley came back for Deadpool and Wolverine and everybody got nuts over that, but come on. This guy, I don't know if he can physically handle continuing to play this part in the 2030s and be old as hell doing, martial arts and stuff and then complaining about scripts left and right. I don't see that happening.
Well, I think that will probably be one of the big names in one of the future Avengers movies. Yeah, either Wesley or Mahershala Ali. So we have two more stories, and we're gonna head home, folks. If you have any questions or want to have conversations, we can still go. But if not, we're just going to end with these next two stories. This one is just more news. Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse will finally be released in 2027.
I'll believe it when I see it because we know that thing's been delayed to hell because of all the production issues, and I want to see it. I think it would be amazing. But yeah, it's just Sony just doesn't have their shit together. That's all.
I agree. And Barry Jenkins is in talks, or not really in talks. He's making a deal to direct Zendaya in a Ronnie Spector biofilm. I think this could work. I like that he's going back kind of to his roots after dealing with Mufasa, more digital effects and all that, and going to more like stories with human characters and drama. And this might be the film that, pushes Zendaya even higher, like how she got the Emmy for the show popped out of my head. Euphoria. This could be like the big screen, where she finally gets that role where critics are like, oh my God, she can do anything. They already liked her in Challenger, so why not this?
Yeah, I think it's a good choice. I don't know too much of Ronnie Spector's story other than some of the hit songs she was associated with, but she has that look. She's tall and slender. Barry Jenkins is a great director. I think that could possibly have some play and maybe even an Oscar nomination for Zendaya.
Well, I know whoever they get to play Phil Spector will be the big co-star.
Better not be Al Pacino again.
Hopefully not Tom Holland, since they're engaged in real life.
I see him playing that.
It could be. And
Austin
well,
Butler.
okay. Well, that was the end of our stories. Well, the important ones. So, Andre, do you have anything coming up that you want to promote for the people? And
Yeah, so if you're in Manhattan, anywhere in New York City, my feature film, The Last Vendetta, is going to be screening again as part of the New York True Venture Film Festival, and it's happening April 16th at 8 p.m. at the Producers Club Theaters. You can get the tickets at Film Freeway. Just look up the New York True Venture Film Festival, and the info is also on my Instagram if you want to check it out and find a link for the tickets. And if you're on the West Coast, we're also playing in Vegas too, as part of the Vegas Black Film Festival, and that's happening the 25th of this month at the Suncoast Hotel at 4:45. Same thing. My info is there on my Instagram to get more information on tickets and dress code and other things. So yeah, we're moving along pretty well with the film.
awesome. If you guys would like to see me wear this hat again in the future, please contact us and let us know. But that ends our business for this week. But as you know, we always have unfinished business to deal with. Andre, what movie do you think the people should go see? Or would you
It,
recommend?
it's a movie that we just reviewed. Have you seen Strange Darling? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome.
I agree. And I will ask the people, because I didn't think of this beforehand. So my brain's going through like 50,000 different movies. Have you guys seen Risky Business? If not, why not? Because it's still fucking awesome. And with that, we'll see you guys next month for another live episode of Unfinished Business Television. Oh, yeah, I have to end it.